And joining us is Mr. Darlington Peter Onwe, the PDP Publicity Secretary, Ebonyi State. Mr. Peter Onwe, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning, my dear sister, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right, let's begin with the outcome of the polls. What exactly are the grievances, or if you like, the pattern of the conduct of the polls that the PDP is anchoring its challenge of the outcome on?
Okay, you see, what happened on August 22nd, 2026, that's on Saturday, is a charade as far as the PDP is concerned. Because you cannot build something on nothing and expect it to stand. The Ebonyi local government election stand as a nullity, reason being that there has been a couple of legal issues that is associated with the conduct of that poll. You may, be informed rightly that there is a substituting judgment of court relating to that particular local government election. And local government election, as you know, happens to be an election of the top tier of government. In Ebonyi State, in 2022, they conducted the local government election against the pronouncement and judgment of court, which nullified that particular election. Also in 2024, they also conducted another level of election, which was nullified by Federal High Court Abuja, Abakaliki. And upon that nullification, appeal was made, and they also lost out in that appeal. They went ahead and inaugurated the people who they gathered to call the elected chairman of as an outcome of that election. And also, if you find out in the second nullification of that election, it was clear there was a consequential judgment that was in the light of an injunction. It is a substituting injunction that has not been stayed, it has not been appealed up until the charade that they conducted on Saturday. And that injunction restrained Ebonyi State government and EFSEC from conducting further local government election, pending when it aligns its modus operandi and operational model with the constitutional requirements and the requirements of the judgment that nullified the election. So as long as PDP is concerned, there is no election in local government election in 22nd of August. You see, the issue is that we live in a state where the people in charge of the governance appears to represent a new era of animal farm, where peasants, opportunists were able to secure government machinery and authority. And now, instead of using it for the betterment of the people, they are now using it for their own interests in the context of where government announces humongous budget during appropriation processes, and they also make declarations as to this sector will get this sector will get this. But here in Abakaliki, you cannot point to one thing that the particular budgetary allocation has resulted to. Take for instance the educational sector. You cannot point to one functional school that was initiated and completed and effectively working by the state government. Now, you go to health sector. Our health sector is moribund. Ebonyi State is one state.
Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you.
The conversation is not whether they've done well or not. The conversation is about the election, right? So let's stick with the conversation, the core of the conversation about So I'm trying to, when I remember, I'm going to point that section in the Electoral Act that talks about when an election has been fixed, the process has to go on. If you're not comfortable, you head to court. We saw what happened in Rivers State, even though there are arguments of the entire process under a declaration of emergency, holding elections when an emergency was declared. But you see that an election was held, and then the court nullified that process. Because when election has been fixed, the process has to go on, and then if you are aggrieved. So let's talk about what your actions are. I'm going to look for the exact provision in the Electoral Act. I'm trying to sort for it. So what exactly made the PDP to head to court? Now that the election has been held and won by the APC, that's why we say in Nigeria, the easiest election to predict is local government election. You don't even need to be a political pundit. Just check which party is the ruling party and you know they'll win. So it's a no-brainer. So talk to us about your next line of action.
Well, for us, there's no election. There was no election.
No, that's not. That's not the point. The election held. Just hold on. Election held.
What they did was in parade.
Okay.
Listen, can I ask you something? Can you build something on nothing? Can you call? Are you on a national television to call an illegality an election, my brother? No.
So let's go back. You're not getting my point. That's why I gave you the opportunity. So do two things for me in one. What were the relief you sought in court to stop the election? Nonetheless, the election held, winners were declared. And what is your next action based on the relief you sought that was or was not granted? I don't know whether you get my question.
Okay, yes.
Good.
Now, the previous election, after that particular election, we looked at what are the constitutional provisions, relating to that particular election. And what are also the electoral guidelines that, are in place as well. And we find out that it was just a ruling party mobilizing people, who they want to force into the local government system to be able to be using local government money for their own personal aggrandizement. And the PDP drew the attention to, one, the exclusion of opposition, particularly the PDP, in the area of giving us level playing ground. But those things were not, respected, and the PDP had no options than to head to court. Now, for instance, the election of local governments across the country happens every 3 years, but it's only in Ebonyi that it is 2 years tenure, like 2022 and 2024, and now 2026. And these are the things that we needed to put in place to say, hey, can't we align this with the constitutional requirement? And part of the relief that the applicants sought for was for INEC to align with the INEC procedures and guidelines in consonance with the FCT election, because it is expected that local government election should align with that of the FCT, but they did not heed to us, and that's why we proceeded to court, and the particular election was nullified, and they even went for appeal, and they also lost out on the appeal. They went ahead and inaugurated the 13 people they said that they are the winners of that election. And after which, 2 years afterward, 2024, another election was conducted, and still on the basis of illegality, and then the court, or the Federal High Court, Abuja, particularly in that second judgment, did not only stop and notify that particular election, but also was fused as to why a sitting government, a government that is constituted under a democratic rule, would ignore the judgment of court to go and conduct an election. And so it didn't stop at declaring that the election null and void, but it also went ahead to give a consequential order. Right. That order is an injunction of a court of competent jurisdiction that Ebonyi State, in fact, it restrained the Ebonyi State government and the Ebonyi State Independent Electoral Commission from conducting any further election, right, without first of all making good with all the complaints brought up by the applicants to that suit. But then we were expecting that they would call an inclusive engaging meeting involving all political parties that intend to participate in that election. But all of those things were not in place. And
Mr. Well, I'm not quite sure. Yes, I'm not quite sure if you've answered the question of what is your next line of action as PDP in Ebonyi State. But I'm not sure too if you're familiar with documentaries on Nigel Wild. Parents, especially mothers, play a very, very big role in the survival of their children. I'm referring to parenting now. In your case, the PDP, I'm wondering in terms of the mother national executives, I don't know where Ebonyi PDP aligns to. Is it with the Wike-backed faction where we have the Abdurrahman-led national led executives as national chairman and the secretary, I can't remember his name now, from the southeast, or you align with the Turaki-led faction? Because I'm wondering just what kind of support you're getting at the national level of the PDP. And then my second question would be the son of the Minister of Works, Osborne, 28 years old, has been elected chairman of, I think, Hazara local government area in Ebonyi State. Is that also a concern to the PDP?
Okay, let me start with the first question where you talked about faction. My dear brother, I speak to you now and I also want to speak to Nigerians. PDP has no faction. This is a settled matter by the FS court, and as a matter of fact, saying that there is a Turaki-led faction or a Wike-led faction is, for me, it shouldn't even come up in a national debate, in a national conversation as this, because this is issue that is in public domain, because in the Supreme Court judgment, there was nowhere it gave a declaration as to the fact that the succeeding leadership of the PDP at the national level, it has any defect. You see, but we live in a country where everyone does anything and goes scot-free. That is the reason why a certain group of people can gather themselves together in flagrant disobedience to the judgment of the highest court of the land.
So who is the national chairman of the PDP, Mr. Darlington?
The national chairman of the PDP is Honorable Abraham. So, and presently, we all know this.
I'm not sure I got that name quite clear. Honorable, are you referring to Abdurrahman? Okay, I'm not sure if you heard me. I'm asking who is the national chairman of the People's Democratic Party?
Okay, I can hear you now. I said it's Honorable Abraham.
Okay, I'm wondering, there's Abdurrahman and there's...
He's talking about Abdurrahman.
Okay, Abdurrahman, okay. Well, that's the Wike-backed-led faction, even though you say there's no faction. But go ahead.
He is the national chairman of the party, and that is the position of law. And so whatever thing anyone is saying or doing is in flagrant disobedience of the judgment of the highest court of the land, which, if all things were to be equal, I mean, those people should be held accountable for contempt of court. You see, that is one. So let it be known clearly that PDP is one united, indefensible, strengthened, enabled, empowered political party, opposition political party, existing in Nigeria at the national level and at the sub-national level here in Ebonyi State. Now, the second question, you talked about, in the second question, you talked about the Osborne case. Now, we would have taken that matter serious if there was an election in Ebonyi State. Recall I told you that there was no election. As far as PDP is concerned, can you rightly call an illegality an election? No. For PDP, it's not assault. We can't take that. We are a state that is being organized in accordance with the rule of law. Section 1 of the Constitution 1999 as amended prescribed that the Constitution is supreme. Subsection 2 is to the effect that no part of the country, known as that is the subnational, should or shall be governed without in accordance with the Constitution. And so, the sub 3 of Section 1 of the Constitution is to the effect that any law, any rule that is inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution is a nullity to the extent of its departure with the provisions of the Constitution. And so for us, because the challenge that they call local government election is a nullity, we will not recognize or take that challenge as an election.
All right. As we round off now, if a number of political parties participated in that election, if they were queuing behind you on your stance that the elections were a charade and there's a consequential court order stopping the exercise from holding in the first place, why did they participate in the exercise? APGA participated, LP participated, amongst others. So why did they participate in the exercise?
We know how these things work. Now, the truth of the matter is that there was no level of such participation. What they did was because early in the morning of that election, PDP issued a statement, pointing at some of the reasons why that election should not go on. Even called on the EPSEC chairman to stop that election forthwith, and immediately they read that particular text of a press conference by the PDP. They have to do that kangaroo arrangement to position people as if they are opposition party that is contesting election. They should show us where APGA conducted the campaign. You cannot go into election without campaign. They should give us a clip, or they should give us a verifiable evidence to the effect that APGA, that they claim participated in the election, conducted the campaign. And you see, there are a lot of videos making round because Ebonyi people are very, very vexed with the present administration, and even the manner at which the local government election is being conducted, and therefore they did not come out for that election, and so they resorted to hiring the people within their rank to be thumbprinting those ballot boxes. It's in public domain, you understand? So for us, like I said earlier, there was no local government election of the Ebonyi State government in the last election, in the last Saturday.
If I may comment, I think if you have all these consequential court order, malpractice or compliance issues, you have a good case. Just head to court. It's not a television comparison. It's good you create this awareness. But quick question. As a matter of fact, he said, well, maybe at the state level you guys are opposition, but I don't see the Abdurrahman group as any opposition, because I always challenge Jugundu. I've not seen one. Jugundu is the national publicity secretary of the PDP. They've never opposed anything about Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government, so I don't know what kind of opposition is that. But question, why has people are asking how many groups actually exist in the PDP in the state, and why you haven't unveiled your deputy governorship candidate? If you can answer it in 30 seconds.
Groups, there's no groups in PDP. PDP is one.
Okay.
That you should know. Now you talked about what again? The second
deputy governorship candidate.
The deputy governorship candidate. You want them to go and kill him? Are you not aware what is happening in the state? We are preparing our ground, and we will unveil our deputy governor as soon as possible.
So
but instead is so hot that the ruling party do not want any opposition. They do not want any decent voices.
Just hold on, sir. You have a governorship candidate, right?
Definitely.
So why are you saying if they unveil a deputy governor, go and leave the governorship and go and kill? Who wants to kill who?
Because you are aware of the plethora of attacks that is linked to the ruling APC in the state. Just last week, just because at Ohuku, another statesman, adopted and prayed for a candidate of APGA, going for House of Representative Honorable Tochiko Ogale. In the night, they went to kill the man. So do you want them to go and kill our deputy governorship candidate? So we are preparing our ground, and in due course, Ebonyi people will definitely know who is our deputy governorship candidate. It's a public, it's a public related issue which can never be, done without.
All right. At the heart of this matter is, compliance with the rule of law, and we hope that that is upheld, which looks very unlikely in these circumstances, but the value of the conversation is just as important, and you have our best wishes, as do all other parties that have participated in this exercise. Mr. Darlington Peter Onwe is the PDP Publicity Secretary, Ebonyi State. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter Onwe, for coming on the program.
Thank you.